Imagine needing money, so you accept a deadly game of possibly ending your life. Would you put your life at risk for some easy cash to save your family? Stick around until the end to see the final duel and the outcome with some shocking betrayals in this deadly game of Russian roulette. Welcome back to your daily dose of Movie Pill. Today, we're recapping a 2010 psychological crime movie titled 13. Spoilers ahead, and let's dive right in. In a bustling establishment where fortunes are exchanged beneath an unusual luminary, Vincent finds himself locked in a perilous standoff, his firearm aimed at an adversary who mirrors the gesture in defiance. As he awaits the opportune moment to act, Vincent's thoughts drift back to the genesis of this tense encounter. Merely 4 days prior, in Ohio, Vincent, alongside his mother and sisters, reluctantly agrees to listing their familial abode for sale, a desperate measure to offset their father's staggering medical expenses incurred from a prolonged hospitalization due to an accident. Before starting his daily work as an electrician, Vincent makes it a point to visit his sick father, a routine that grounds him amidst the chaos of his life. Unbeknownst to him, his professional path intertwines with that of Mr. Harrison, who, unbeknownst to Vincent, is under court surveillance by law enforcement. Intrigued by snippets of conversation overheard during his encounters, Vincent's curiosity is piqued, particularly when he learns of Mr. Harrison's hopeful anticipation of a mysterious letter promising wealth. Returning home later that day to celebrate his youngest sister's birthday, Vincent finds solace in her innocent wish for a pet lamb, a brief respite from the complexities of his reality. Meanwhile, across the country, Jasper Baggs finds himself in a secret meeting with dubious characters who extend a loan of $2 million, with the expectation of repayment totaling $3 million within a mere 3 days. The next day, during his usual visit to his sick father in the hospital, Vincent gets disheartening news from the doctor. Another operation is needed, which will worsen their already serious financial problems. Back at Mr. Harrison's establishment, Vincent accidentally overhears a conversation between his boss and an acquaintance. Mr. Harrison excitedly discusses a lucrative opportunity that could bring a substantial profit in just 1 day. But he remains wary, haunted by previous misfortunes that cast doubt over his optimism. Tragedy strikes later that evening when Mr. Harrison succumbs to a fatal overdose, leaving behind a cloud of suspicion and unanswered questions. In the aftermath of the investigation, Vincent finds himself under scrutiny by law enforcement, his actions scrutinized in connection with the mysterious envelope that vanished from Mr. Harrison's possession. Seizing an opportunity, Vincent escapes with the enigmatic package, containing a cryptic letter bearing a distinctive spider logo, alongside instructions directing him to utilize the enclosed funds for lodging in New York, with strict warnings to exclusively use the provided phone. His action draws the attention of Detective Mullane, who has been tirelessly pursuing leads relating to the enigmatic envelopes, and now orders surveillance on Vincent as the investigation takes a compelling turn. The subsequent day finds Vince meticulously donning his finest attire before embarking on a journey to New York via train, blissfully unaware of the shadowy figure tailing him, a vigilant law enforcement officer. Upon his arrival at the bustling metropolis, Vince dutifully follows the instructions provided, settling into a hotel room as directed. It's during the stillness of the night that his new phone abruptly rings, announcing the start of another secret meeting. Assuming the guise of Harrison, Vincent diligently adheres to the directives conveyed over the line. Journeying to the Postnet store adjacent to Grand Central Station, Vince employs the provided key to unlock a designated post office box, unveiling yet another cryptic envelope containing a fresh set of instructions, alongside a ticket to Macomb and an enigmatic cork bearing the number 13. However, Vince's carefully orchestrated plan encounters an unforeseen hiccup when a train inspector, suspicious of his destination, alerts law enforcement to his presence. Nevertheless, Vince cunningly outmaneuvers the pursuing officers by disembarking one stop prior to Macomb, gaining a fleeting advantage in his cat-and-mouse game. The subsequent leg of his journey entails a rendezvous with a waiting taxi, which soon gives way to the arrival of another vehicle, helmed by a man named Jack. A shared cork bearing the ominous number 13 serves as the token of recognition between them, facilitating Vince's seamless transition into Jack's care. As Detective Mullane and his colleagues arrive at the scene moments later, guided by the taxi driver's testimony, they find themselves frustrated by Vince's deft evasion, leaving no trace for them to pursue. Transported to a secluded shack nested amidst the dense foliage of the forest, Vince undergoes a meticulous inspection of his belongings by 2 imposing figures, ensuring he harbors no concealed item. Even the heels of his shoes fall victim to scrutiny, severed to eliminate any possibility of concealment. Subsequently, Vince discovers himself transported to an affluent mansion bustling with wealthy guests, where he's introduced to his benefactor Joe. Despite Joe's keen awareness of Vince's real identity, the pressing situation forces him to reluctantly invite Vince to join their high-stakes game, fearing backlash from their powerful clientele. In the bustling arena below, the air is thick with anticipation and the clinking of substantial wagers. Jasper, a prominent figure in the proceedings, enters the fray, placing his bet on his favored contender, participant number 6. Meanwhile, Joe, another influential player in this high-stakes game, places his faith and his money on Vince. The competition, revealed to be a deadly game of Russian roulette, sets hearts pounding as Vince and his fellow participants don black number suits, each representing their grim designation. Armed with a single bullet, they form a chilling circle, aiming their weapons at one another in a macabre dance of fate. The tension escalates as the signal, a bulb adorned with the eerie spider logo, casts its glow, marking the moment for action. Vince, gripped by nerves, seeks assistance from Jack to load his weapon, his trembling hands betraying the weight of the situation. When the bulb finally illuminates, chaos erupts as bullets find their marks, claiming lives in a harrowing display of chance and survival. In the aftermath of the carnage, Vince finds himself under the scrutiny of security, compelled to follow the rules under threat of dire consequences. Summoning every ounce of courage, he finally pulls the trigger, exhaling a sigh of relief as his target survives the deadly game. Following the harrowing ordeal, Joe offers Vince words of encouragement, urging him to steel himself for the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, Jack extends a tempting offer of morphine to dull the trauma, a gesture Vince declines, determined to face his trials with clarity of mind. Somewhere else, Patrick Jefferson, participant 17, pleads with his patron Jimmy for help, offering substantial payment for his release. Despite Jefferson's story of captivity and attempted escape, Jimmy remains unmoved, leaving him to accept his bleak destiny. In a parallel narrative, Jasper orchestrates additional bets on his brother Ronald Lynn Baggs, newly released from a mental institution to serve as Jasper's chosen player in the deadly game unfolding before them. As the stakes climb ever higher, the players are drawn deeper into the abyss of chance and consequences, their fates intertwined in a deadly dance of survival. As the second round unfolds, the tension in the room thickens, suffused with an aura of palpable dread. The revelation that each firearm now harbors 2 lethal bullets sends a shiver of apprehension through the assembled participant. With grim inevitability, the deadly game claims its toll, exacting its merciless price as half of the circle falls prey to the capricious whims of fate. Amidst the chaos, Vince clings to survival by the slimmest margin, his fate hanging in the balance as the assailant behind him falters in his deadly task. Yet, any semblance of reprieve is short-lived as participant number 16 briefly rises, only to meet a swift demise at the hands of vigilant security, unable to continue the deadly dance. Meanwhile, participant number 11, Hans, faces increased turmoil as his mental state deteriorates, leading him to seek reassurance from his patron, Schlondorf. In a bid to ensure his future, Jefferson reveals more about his troubled history to Jimmy, recounting previous run-ins with the law and the hidden stash of illegally obtained wealth awaiting his retrieval. Amid all the chaos, Jasper is flooded with the memories of his troubled past, especially the moment he decided to free his brother Ronald from a mental hospital. But Ronald's fragile mental state risks disrupting their well-played plans, leading to a tense confrontation that Jasper manages to defuse just in time. As the third round begins, the pressure on the remaining participants is evident. Hans urgently requests sedation, while number 3 shows signs of physical exhaustion. Ronald, increasingly agitated, provokes Vince into a confrontation, escalating the tense atmosphere until the vigilant host intervenes swiftly to defuse the situation. In this pivotal phase, each player is armed with 3 bullets, heightening the stakes to a fever pitch. Amidst the chaos, only 5 contenders remain standing: Vince, Jefferson, Ronald, number 3, and number 9. A select few poised to advance to the climactic duel. The tension peaks as 5 wrapped balls, each holding the fate of either freedom or doom, are placed on the table. The patrons, with the power to determine their players' destinies, pick their spheres, influencing the outcome of the ultimate showdown. Unexpectedly, Jasper and Joe are selected as the contenders, setting up a clash between Vince and Ronald for survival. As the final phase looms ominously, alliances are forged and allegiances tested, with Joe leveraging Schlondorf's support in a calculated bid to tilt the odds in Vince's favor. Yet, amidst the chaos, a sinister betrayal unfolds, as Jimmy, fueled by greed and desperation, seeks to eliminate Jefferson, a heinous act foiled by the timely intervention of security, who remind him of the sacred principle that participants are untouchable. In the tense calm before the final round, pandemonium erupted in Jefferson's room. Jimmy and the guards stormed in, demanding the map. Jefferson, ever the gambler, feigned outrage. He tossed a blank piece of paper at them, a sly smile playing on his lips. As they hauled him off, their faces etched with suspicion, Jefferson knew he'd outsmarted them. Back alone, he retrieved the real map, his victory bittersweet. The deadly game still loomed. Downstairs, a separate conflict brewed. Ronald, driven by paranoia and years of bitterness, confronted Jasper. Ronald shouted that Jasper kept everything to himself, blaming his brother for taking their parents' money and confining him. Jasper, caught off guard and defensive, attempts to explain, but his words are drowned out by Ronald's furious outburst. Suddenly, we're thrust back to the beginning of the final round. The stakes are higher now. 3 bullets loaded in each gun, their metallic clicks a chilling symphony of death. Vince and Ronald lock eyes, a silent exchange of fear and desperation. They raise their weapons, fingers hovering on the trigger. A cacophony of gunshots erupt, the air thick with gunpowder. Yet, both men stand defiantly. A lucky round. But fate is a fickle mistress. As they reload, a single extra bullet is added to each chamber. This time, there's no room for error. The tension is suffocating. A final deafening shot rings out. Ronald crumples, a crimson stain blossoming on his shirt. Silence descends, broken only by ragged breaths. Vince, the unlikely victor, stands there, the weight of the world pressing down on him. Schlendorf, the gambler who bet on Vince, celebrates his windfall. Jasper, consumed by grief and regret, is numb. But it's Vince who carries the heaviest burden. Ronald's death hangs over him, a grim reminder of the brutality he's both witnessed and participated in. The victors claim their prizes. Vince, his hands shaking, receives a staggering sum, $1,850,000. The man handing it over remarks on his luck, a stark contrast to Ronald's perfect win streak. Schlendorf and Joe, ever opportunistic, offer Vince a ride to the station, a potential escape route. Upstairs, Vince seizes his chance. While pretending to pack, he slips away unnoticed, vanishing into the night through a window. Jack, the reluctant supplier, eventually notices. But Joe, focused on his winnings, doesn't care. Vince reaches the train station the next morning. Unfortunately, fate had one more cruel twist in store. The taxi driver from the previous day recognizes him and alerts the police. Thinking fast, Vince ditches his money bag in a trash can before they apprehend him. Detective Mullane grills Vince about the money, but Vince spins a desperate tale of being dropped in the woods after they realized he wasn't Harrison. He shows his worn-out shoes as proof of his escape. Mullane, lacking evidence, has no choice but to let him go. After hastily hailing another cab to the station, Vince rushes back to the trash can, only to discover his bag missing. However, his keen eye catches sight of recently changed trash bags piled at the rear of the building, prompting him to tear through them in a frantic search. Miraculously, amidst the refuse, he locates his precious money. Yet the close call serves as a stark reminder of the perilous risk he faces. Determined to safeguard his new fortune, Vince decides for a more secure approach. He proceeds to the post office, depositing all the money into a box destined for his family via registered mail. Taking no chances, he promptly alerts his mother to expect the package, ensuring someone will be present to receive it upon delivery. With the weight lifted off his shoulders, Vince embarks on the journey to New York. After a night's rest in a hotel, Vince ventures out to a nearby grocery store in the morning, intending to stock up on the provisions for the trip ahead. Amidst the aisles, his gaze aligns upon a lamb plushie, evoking memories of his beloved sister. Despite initial reluctance from the clerk, Vince is compelled to purchase the sentimental item, shelling out a hefty sum of $100. Vince, burdened by thoughts of home, boards the train headed for Ohio. Unexpectedly, Jasper strikes up a casual conversation, but as the train stops at its first station, Jasper's demeanor shifts drastically. He pulls out a weapon and fatally shoots Vince before fleeing with the bag, unaware of what it truly holds. In his final moments, Vince's thoughts turn to his family, a bittersweet reminder of the sacrifices he made in pursuit of a better life. As darkness descends, he swallows the post office receipt, a futile gesture in the face of impending demise. Maybe this is a wake-up call not to accept shady proposals that involve a lot of money being given to the winners. You should always think before acting in these situations, and not to throw your life away for some money. But hey, at least he succeeded in his task. I rate this movie a 7 out of 10. What do you think? Looks like this movie pill is starting to wear off. But don't worry, there's always more where that came from. Tap here to keep the effects going with this next movie, because who can stop at just one? And while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, because your next movie dose is just a click away.